Continuing. Third grade. Each grade had 2 equally sized classes of around 30 students, and there was a nun teaching one and a lay teacher teaching the other. Every grade was like that. In third grade, I was assigned to the class with the lay teacher, again, Mrs. Martin. For some reason, I was never assigned to the classes with a nun for a teacher. I suspect my parents may have asked that I get the lay teacher as my homeroom teacher the whole time I was there. Mrs. Martin was a tall, skinny, middle-aged mother of one of our new students, Teddy. Teddy was also tall and both exuded the look and sound of a full-blooded Irish person. Ethnicity was another odd issue at Holy Ghost. I think we had maybe 3 black students in our grade in total over the 8 years I was there. That's not a lot of exposure to diverse ethnicities. We also almost never had any Asians, Native Americans, or Middle Easterners. The 3 black kids were 3 brothers from Jamaica who attended our school for about a semester. It was a very bland mix. This was not a good social training situation for young white American kids to grow up with. Even then, I understood that I was at a special school and that the majority of American kids were interacting with all other kinds of kids, so we were missing out. Mrs. Martin was nice to us students, and I don't even remember her raising her voice. We kind of liked her since she was the mother of one of the less unpopular students. Teddy was happy-go-lucky and rarely mean. He came to our school at around 3rd grade and moved up in popularity a bit fast. I thought that having a teacher for a mother is the downside of that, so I wasn't at all jealous. The other class in 3rd grade was taught by Mrs. Trudy, another parent of a student. Mrs. Trudy was absolutely huge. She was the first truly serious obese human I had ever known to that point. She wore elastic polyester pants, blouse combination suits of a variety of colors, but always the same style. My mother spent a lot of time making clothes, so my sister and I spent a lot of time with her at the fabric store. She would buy fabric by the bolt, and we got to see how to make your own clothes. Mrs. Trudy reminded me of the fabric store where you could buy fabric in bolts, enough to make a large circus tent, if you wanted. I thought Mrs. Trudy is a fabric supplier's dream. She wore equally oversized glasses. We could have eaten lunch off of just one of those lenses. Her appearance was both disturbing and comical to all of us, except to her son, Sam. Sam Trudy was a year behind us, so I never got to know him well. We all just knew that the son of a very large teacher was running around with other students. He was also on his way to an obese adulthood. Besides all that, Mrs. Trudy was nice to us students for the most part. I always knew she was in no condition to paddle anyone. A tiny elderly nun could do the job very well, but not Mrs. Trudy. It was around the middle of my 3rd grade year when our school got a new principal. We never found out why our old principal left. We theorized that she was just too old for the job now. Our new principal was Mr. McHugh, and he visited our classes on the first day of his time there, and we talked to him in the quadrangle during recess. Our first conversation with him went something like this. Student, how do you spank? Mr. McHugh, usually with my fist. Seriously. We got the message. While he was our principal, we shaped up a bit. He was probably 6'7", always wore a large suit, and had a really low voice. After a while, a rumor began to spread that he kept a bullwhip in his office closet. No one doubted it, and no one wanted to verify it. It was a no-brainer, it seemed. It is a good thing that I never got paddled by him. It is a very good thing. It was in the 3rd grade that we began to go on field trips. It was a very special event to be allowed to leave the school campus for a while, but to take a school bus was something else. We didn't have busing at our school, so everyone came to school in their parents' cars, or, like I did at this time, in a carpool. This was the only time that an actual yellow school bus would ever be seen anywhere near our school. We marveled at the size of those big rolling monsters. They were intimidating and thrilling long before we got on the road. One of the best field trips we got to go on, we took a few times, and that was to Houston's Museum of Natural Science. Going from Holy Ghost Catholic School to a place of science was a dynamic breath of fresh air for us. Here's where people care about the truth, I shouted out loud in my mind. It was like a celebration of knowledge and a release from ignorance, just for a few hours. We did some museum schoolwork and toured the entire place. We went to a show at the Baker Planetarium. We got the whole learning package as a group, and I hardly knew my classmates that day. I was so elated. At the museum, we could see actual bones and fossils of bones and footprints of dinosaurs, something that was not explored in any of the Bible stories we had heard and read and studied up to that point. Oh sure, there are mythical monsters in the Bible, and one could easily decide that they were dinosaurs by different names. Only until the descriptions of those beasts gets discovered, and the laughable nature of those Bible inventions comes into play, that we realize how silly it is to even open that damnable book. At the museum, we could actually see evidence of those real animals who must have lived more than 6,000 years ago. A fossil beats a shroud anytime. We saw depictions of ancient humans hammering out their survival with rocks and berries. They slaughtered whatever animal they could and tore it apart and ate from it like lions. They acted positively animalistic, and that seems to have worked for them. They cared not for politics or religion, and usually didn't hunt fellow humans for food. They showed empathy towards each other as they evolved. By the way, later in this book I talk about how I learned about the difference between faith and skepticism in the 6th grade. At this Catholic school, and most Catholic schools at the time, evolution was taught as probable fact, without creationism directly involved in science classes at all. We got plenty of that during religion class and church. It actually surprised me when I first heard the 6,000-year estimate of the age of the earth that so many Christians from other denominations cling to. Catholics seem to have evolved a bit in their thinking on this. Well, good for them. We went to a show at the Baker Planetarium. Now, this was a special treat. If you've never been to a planetarium, you must go at least once in your life. It's special. We walked in and there were plush, cushioned seats everywhere, all facing forward and upward at about a 40-degree angle. They rocked back and forth easily and without any noise. The ceiling was the movie screen, and the movie projector was this futuristic-looking metallic device in the middle of the room, elevated above the seats. It looked like a spaceship of some kind in miniature, shaped like an hourglass made of metal, with tiny lights coming from each of the bulbous ends of the hourglass design, shined out into the air, invisible beyond their origin when the house lights were up. We all found our seats and rocked incessantly back and forth impatiently. Comfortable seats were another first in our lives, it seemed. Suddenly the lights were down and the tiny lights on the projector brightened. The whole place came alive and we felt like we were in some amusement ride in space. The show was about our solar system and the Milky Way galaxy. It also included a few seconds of religion. We learned a lot and then saw that religion, and it was like a letdown. The ceiling erupted in flashes and bright lights in a display of cosmic anarchy. Then all fell silent and dark until a single bright star in the sky shined down over one point on the surface of the earth to reveal the birthplace of the baby Jesus. Whatever. I could not believe my eyes and ears. Christianity creeps into wherever it can, especially where there's a captive audience to appeal to. This same type of letdown would occur in my life again and again, as this type of dishonest advertising occurs all over the world now. At the end of the field trip, we'd all pile back into the school buses and go back to Holy Ghost School. I hated that. Back to the old ignorance grind, and back to having to pray all the time. Shit.